Hi, everyone. Where's Shin? Hi, Shin.
Hello. Hi, Amanda. Good to be here.
Going. Great to be here. This is wonderful. We have about 130 people on the call and counting, so I'm just going to get right into it. I know we don't have
Good.
a crazy amount of time, but it's awesome. This is great. This is we're going up to about 132, where everyone's coming on. So
Wow.
hi,
I'm kind of
everyone.
nervous. I don't think we've ever done anything like this.
We've never done anything like this. We've never done anything. Usually we're talking, Shin and I talk almost every day, and I'm walking around my house. I'm a pacer. So I walk and I talk the whole time. Everybody that knows me, my phone is always dead because I'm walking with it all the time. It's never charged. I'm just like a mover. So it's weird for me to be sitting here. So if my New York hands are going crazy, it's because I really want to be walking and talking with you, Shin. So I'm going to do my best regardless. You're not on your pacer today, Shin, either. So.
I'm not. I was told not to do my Stairmaster thing. I use that, every day, literally for hours on end when I'm making phone calls or doing anything else. Not today, though.
Not today. We're going to sit. We're going to be professional. We're going to do this the right way. So I'm going to officially welcome everybody. Welcome to a conversation with Students Helping Honduras. My name is Amanda Fennell Andrews. I am the vice chair of the executive board at SHH. I had the privilege to work for 4 years alongside Shin and the rest of our incredible staff as the director of operations. And that was a couple of years ago, and now I've been still such an active. I can't get away. I can't not be SHHing as my passion, my heart, and my soul. So I'm really it's been a privilege to be working in any capacity and having this conversation with you today after volunteering for the first time in 2009. So it's been a few years.
It's been a long time. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time for me. And we're grateful for everyone that's on this call right now. Is also some alumni, volunteers, past donors. If you're new to SHH, we're so grateful that you're here taking some time out to be with us. We also have Cassidy Webb and Jessica Coulter on the back end, have been working to make this all possible, make everything possible, and especially this webinar to have it go smoothly. So just a huge shout out to them as always. Thank you, thank you. And we hope that each and every one of you on the call with us is staying safe during these really dark and sad times that my heart is going out to all of you and our entire SHH family, and our minds are going out to you as everybody is being hit and affected by COVID-19, which is one of the reasons that we're here today on Giving Tuesday, a great celebration of all organizations really sharing what they do best. And so we thought this was a great opportunity to share just a little bit of the SHH story. It's a long one, and we could probably sit here and talk for hours, and Shin and I have been grappling about how to kind of cram this into such a short period of time. So there's going to be a lot we're not able to get to. We had almost 100 questions submitted, I believe, for today, and I'm going to do my best to try to wiggle in as many questions as I can. But we're going to cover about a decade worth of ground. So we don't get to your topic, please join us. We do this every single Tuesday at 6 p.m. Via Zoom, and we have the entire community there. We can see everyone's faces. This is kind of weird that it's just you and me, because normally we have, a couple hundred people that we can kind of feed off their energy, everyone repping their SHH shirts. So please join us next Tuesday and hear more about how you can get involved with the entire community and what we're doing. If this is your very first experience with Students Helping Honduras, I'd like to offer you a welcome, a bienvenidos to you. We're a family in SHH, and we hope that you'll enjoy this and come back next week. So a few background facts before we really dig into it. I know we do have some new people to the call. So to talk about Honduras, we always get the question, why Honduras? And you're in Honduras right now, just to make sure everybody knows this is a real true international call today. But each year, thousands of kids that are living there are joining gangs like MS-13 and MS-18. Honduras has a 68% poverty rate and one of the highest rates of just general inequality in Latin America when it comes to their economy. And when it comes to education, especially, about 40% of Honduran kids in secondary school are not in school. And of the poorest quintile of Hondurans, over 60% of them are out of school. And we believe in this organization that with access to quality education and employment, that the Honduran people can fight back and that we can break the generational cycles of poverty. And it's a marathon run. This is something that we're in here for the long haul. So COVID has threatened many facets of our organization, but we are not stopping in that really huge mission that we do have. So SHH has been working to alleviate that extreme poverty in Honduras and that extreme violence through education and youth empowerment. We've had over 7,000 volunteers visit us in Honduras to build schools with us. We've raised over $5 million, and the organization has grown to employ over 70 Hondurans that work with us, that are the lifeblood and soul and the community leaders of everything that we do. This year was a huge year for SHH. The Villa Soleada Bilingual School is over 250 students. We inaugurated the high school and we broke ground on school number 58. And then COVID hit all of us. So right at the middle of a really exciting time for us, we did hit this wall that is going to and is hitting Honduras disproportionately and affecting the health of everyone, but also of our organization. So that's kind of what is bringing us here today and having this talk with Shin. So I want to give everybody a little bit of background on Shin Fujiyama. He is a TED speaker, a CNN hero, podcast host, and founder of Students Helping Honduras, and most recently an up-and-coming author of his memoir that you will all be able to read later this year. So he's calling in today from right on location from the Villa Soleada Children's Home in Honduras, where he's been making calls. Shin, I think you've made almost 1,000 calls so far.
I think so. Yeah. So I think we're trying to make 3,000 phone calls. That's the goal. Right. So we're literally about a third of the way. That's it. Still got a long ways to go.
And those 1,000 calls are for our newest initiative called Tigers Club. We are the Villa Soleada Bilingual School Tigers, which is more, that's our fundraising initiative.
Yeah, stand up so they can see that we couldn't see the tiger.
I'm sitting here, Sue. This is, I can't see myself right now, but I think you can see it.
There you go. Oh yeah, that's nice.
Painted by one of our incredible artists living at our children's home, one of our incredible students, Julio Cesar. Big shout out on he's our superstar artist. But I'm not getting off too many tangents, but this is the reason for behind Tigers Club as the mascot for our bilingual school. But it's more urgent than ever. After we came up with this, we said, man, Tigers Club, this is what we're going to do to really secure the organization. And then when COVID hit, we realized it became an emergency that we launched this fundraising initiative. Has affected our organization as stopping trips, stopping all of our fundraisers that have happened that were supposed to happen at all of our chapters across the country, and has really taken us into darkness and threatening what everything that we've built so far. So with that in mind, we want to just share a little bit of the SHH story and talk about who you are, Shin, and share our incredible story on Giving Tuesday. So I guess a actual welcome now after that very long introduction, after we've just been fundraising like crazy and talking about the organization more than ever before, is really just to backtrack and talk about the soul of what we do. And really that is the start, and that's you, Shin. So welcome to our conversation.
All right, thanks for doing this. I know a little while ago, while I was doing my podcast show, I interviewed you, and now the role has reversed, literally.
Yeah, that was weird. That was strange for me, but I thank you for doing that.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. but I want to know a little bit, who you are, and some things that maybe I don't know that I've purposely tried not to read a lot of the manuscript of your book because I want to wait for this conversation to really
Right. You
ask
wanted it to be fresh.
questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about growing up in Fredericksburg and where are you from? Who are you, Shin?
Right. I was born in Japan and in 1983. So I'm 36 now, believe it or not. My family immigrated to California, to Oakland, California, and we grew up in a low-income neighborhood on food stamps. None of us spoke English, certainly not my parents. And we ended up moving to Virginia for my dad to work. And that's actually where I spent the majority of my childhood, in Northern Virginia.
What did he do?
Right outside of DC. So he started he always had this entrepreneurial spirit. So both of my parents are professional skiers. And that's how they met, on the ski slopes. Yeah. They're the professional skiers. And my dad wanted to do his own thing. So he started a travel agency in Virginia and literally built it up from nothing and achieved the American dream. And I remember growing up in a very small house, but as the family group, there's 4 of us, 4 kids. We ended up in a nice house in Fairfax County, of all places, with one of the best school systems in the world. And I was very blessed. I was very lucky. My parents were very caring, and anytime my grades dropped, they'd find me tutors. I started taking SAT prep courses when I was in 7th grade, and my parents had me playing multiple instruments. I had private instrument instructors. You name it. We also had a library in our house downstairs with thousands of books. So I thought that was normal growing up, that everyone had a library in their basement. What would I know? I would later find out, obviously, going to places like Honduras, where most kids in places like this, they don't own a single book in their home. So it was quite a stark realization. But I had a very, very nice childhood. However,
you learn how to ski, though. That's kind of what I want to know.
Right. However, the thing was, I was a pretty restless child. I started to show symptoms of ADHD pretty young, at a very young age, and I was very rambunctious and out of control, let's just say. So, in elementary school, I know some of our teachers do this. Kids get like a color, green, yellow, red, purple, or whatever, every time they behave. They do something wrong, you get the next color or whatever. I was that kid that was always on red or purple every single year. And I was sent to special classes, and I was also in ESL. So I was always kind of on the fringes, And I remember my mom being called into school all the time to literally beg for forgiveness, to beg all of my teachers not to kick me out, not to expel me, not to suspend me. And I was always in detention. And I still remember my mom really fighting for me. And if it weren't for my parents, I don't know where I would be. I was lucky. I eventually discovered my passion for soccer, and I started playing soccer. And I miraculously made the JV soccer team my freshman year in high school. And playing organized sports gave me a sense of routine in my life, which was really good for kind of this restless personality that I had. And that really helped me with my academics, with everything in life in general. So soccer became my life. And
college, that all the way.
It took me to college. So going to college, I had a couple of choices. I did okay in school, but like I said, it was a little too, my everything was so chaotic in my life that I didn't get into UVA, which in Virginia, if you're an Asian American, you got tutors and you're taking SAT prep courses from 7th grade, that's what you're kind of striving towards. And you're comparing yourself with everyone else, right? Did you get into UVA or not? I didn't get in. I got rejected. And I was pretty devastated, to be honest with you. And I also wanted to play professional soccer at that point. So I actually took a gap year after high school and tried out for a number of professional soccer teams in Brazil. I got cut by every single one of those teams too. So I had no idea what I wanted to do. And Mary Washington was the school that I ended up in. They had a D3 soccer program, and that's the reason why I went there, to play soccer there.
Wow. All right. So to speed up thank you for sharing. I didn't know a lot of that. So thank you. UVA, great school, but I didn't know that. But I'm glad that you did not end up going there. Can you tell us now, just really diving into, once you're in college and you're playing soccer, your college team does play, your soccer team plays a big part of the SHH story. Tell us about your first trip. How did you end up in Honduras?
Yeah. So my second year in school, I got cut from the Mary Washington soccer team, and I lost a sense of self. I didn't know who I was. I didn't even know at that point what I wanted to major in still, and I was completely lost. I had no sense of direction. I actually strongly considered dropping out of school, and that's when I ended up coming across a flyer from the local campus ministry, and they were recruiting volunteers for winter break, and they were originally planning to go to Haiti that year, and I signed up on a whim. I just needed to do something different. I needed a distraction. I had never done anything like that, but I signed up for the trip, and unfortunately that trip to Haiti got canceled. There was some civil unrest there. So the pastor of the church, and I've never really been like a religious guy, so I was very nervous going to, I had never been inside a campus ministry until then. Yeah. So I still remember the first meeting, how nervous I thought they were going to like kick me out, because I didn't, I wasn't a part of the group, but they were very welcoming. And Pastor Bob, who was in charge, said to us at one point that the trip was canceled. But if some of us wanted to, we could go to Honduras instead to spend some time at a nonprofit called Our Little Roses. And it was a group home for about 70 girls who had been orphaned, abandoned, or abused. And I thought about it. I actually didn't want to go to Honduras, to be honest. My mind was so set on going to Haiti that I actually considered not going. But when the airline company said that they would change our flight for free, there was nothing to lose. So at that point, I said, well, what the heck? I'll go to Honduras. It's a one-time thing. I'll go once, and I'll probably never go back again. But, hey, I don't have to pay airfare anyway, so let's go for it. That's how I ended up volunteering in Honduras for the first time.
Wow. It's so weird because that person that you're talking about, it doesn't sound like you. I think that from all of this and how much this experience has changed, that you would just, your attitude about it and, the person that you were at that time, it sounds so different than like the person that's in front of me now and how much this experience has changed you. So I'm ready to kind of dig into all of that. Can you tell me then after you're at Our Little Roses now. What was that experience like? Where is Our Little Roses in Honduras?
Yeah.
And I've been there, but I'm bad with directions.
Right. It's in San Pedro Sula, literally in the heart of the city. San Pedro Sula is the second largest city in Honduras. That's where the local airport is, the international airport there. So we flew in there. Little did I know, San Pedro Sula is one of the most dangerous cities in the world. And it was the most dangerous city in the world for a number of years. But about 2 decades ago, an American lady, Diana Friday, she had gone to Honduras and saw all these girls who were in these dire situations. And she opened a small home for them to get them out of these precarious situations. And I believe she started with just 2 or 3 or 4 girls and grew the program little by little over the years. And with the help of the local Hondurans, built up this entire NGO with 70, 80 girls. And some of them at that point, when I arrived there, were going to college. They were going to dental school, law school. When I learned her story, it was eye-opening. I had never heard anything like that. I had no idea that one person could do something like that. This was at the time where the word social entrepreneur hadn't been coined yet. No one really, that wording didn't even exist. So she was definitely ahead of the curve, and meeting these girls who came from these very violent situations, and to know that there was an organization that was helping them to reach their full potential. I had no idea something like that was going on, and it was a very powerful experience. It only lasted a week, And Pastor Bob always says he had taken students to these volunteer trips before, but that had been, in his opinion, the worst one ever. Because I tell you, Amanda, I think like 3/4 of the group got food poisoning, and we were at the hospital for a good chunk of the trip. And because I spoke a decent amount of Portuguese at the time, I spoke some Spanish. I ended up translating for the whole group, like day and night at the hospital. And people didn't get along apparently. And, I was very, focused with getting to know the kids and, playing soccer with them. But there was a lot of drama going on. And so Bob, funny looking back in hindsight, he said he was planning never to go back to Honduras with another group. So yeah, it was a really powerful experience for me, at least.
You go back to William and Mary after that,
Mary Washington. Yeah.
I always do it. Always do it. Where Cosmo went to school. So wait, I mentioned Cosmo. Tell us about that. So we got to fast forward a little bit. Let's start talking about it. You come back and
yeah. So basically, anyone who's been to Honduras who completely knows this feeling. You go to Honduras and you're like flying home, and you're just wondering how can I go back there, right? And that's exactly what I was thinking. I'm flying back to Miami, and I'm telling myself that was so powerful. Even though I thought I would, before the trip, I said I'm probably it's just going to be a one-time thing. All I was thinking about was how can I go back to Honduras. I was completely broke at the time. I had no money. And I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I ended up sitting next to a man. His name was Henry, on the airplane going back to Miami. And he had been working in a tiny little city called El Progreso, Honduras. I never heard about it. And he was telling me about a couple of group homes and a shanty slum that he was supporting there financially. And I got really interested. And he said to me, Shin, you seem like a curious guy with a lot of energy. I'm thinking about going back to El Progreso to do some work sometime at the end of February. And I'm looking for a translator. Do you speak Spanish by any chance? Have you done any translation before? And I said to him, like, would you be willing to pay for the expenses? And he said, I'll pay for airfare. I'll pay for everything. So I said, nice. I speak Spanish. I translated for the group. And I kind of did, at the hospital at the least. So I said, I want to do it. I want to do it. And so I gave, we exchanged contact information, and everyone at the airport in Miami said, Shin, you do not go to another country with a complete stranger like that. That's just a bad idea. And I got discouraged, but I kept in touch with Henry, and ended up going back to Honduras 2 months after my first trip, and ended up this time in El Progreso, which is the city that SHH was born out of.
You had to go back to school though, eventually, right?
Yeah.
So experience, you went back, and
I went back. So I went to Honduras, went back to school, went back to Honduras, had a very powerful experience. We visited a number of group homes, and we met a Catholic sister who was working in the local shanty slum, and she was the founder of the group home that Henry and I were visiting. And crazy story. She told me a story about, everyone's heard this parable before, about the Upstream Parable, right? And there's actually a book about it now. The authors Chip and Dan Heath from what's that book? Made to Stick. They just came out with a book that's called Upstream, and they use the parable where there's two people swimming in a river, and they see a baby drowning, so they jump into the river to rescue the baby, and they feel great about it. But then they hear another baby drowning in the river, so they jump in and get the baby again. And when they look up the river, there's all these babies floating down, and they're rescuing the babies. But they're starting to get tired, and one of them gets out of the river and starts walking away. And the other guy says, "Where are you going? I need your help here." And the guy walking up says, "I'm going to go upstream to see who the heck is throwing the babies into the river so I can do something about it." And literally the Sister Teresita, the Catholic nun, told me that exact story around then, and told me, "Shin, there's a lot of group homes, a lot of children's homes to help these kids who can't live with families or have been abandoned. But she was working in the shanty slum, the largest shanty slum in the city, where a lot of those kids were coming from. So she was trying to help kids who were in a really bad situation, but at the same time trying to prevent all that from happening in the first place. Instead of just addressing the symptoms, she was trying to address the root causes of all those problems. So I learned a lot from her, and I visited all these places, observed her and Henry. That's when I met a really good friend that I still stay in touch with. Her name is Maria Siapa. She grew up in the group home there. And I think she was in high school at the time. And we got really close that week. And I asked her, her nickname is Yapa. And I said, Yapa, what do you want to do when you grow up? And she said, I want to run a nonprofit organization one day. I want to work for a nonprofit and help people. And here I was, this kid, this college student who was thinking about dropping out, because of, I got cut by a soccer team. I didn't even know what I was majoring in. And I was complaining. And this girl who had so much less than me had these huge dreams. So we kind of joked around that maybe one day we were going to be able to, run a nonprofit organization together. And, obviously later on that literally happens. And her, Yapa, me, and my sister Cosmo end up starting SHH later in the story. But that's when I met Yapa, and she kind of like sparked that idea inside my head.
Wow. That's, Yapa's amazing.
Yeah, she's pretty awesome. Yeah, she's pretty awesome.
But
yeah.
That's so cool.
Right. So I was in Honduras. I went back to school, and I went back again that summer and invited my sister down. As you mentioned, my sister, right, who was a college student at the College of William and Mary. Obviously, Mary Washington is the better school. It's okay. I didn't get into William and Mary, but I don't know. Mary Washington is the best. So
Cosmo gets involved, and then
she came to Honduras. She came to Honduras that summer, and she was always my little sister. 2 years younger than me, and she came down here, and we visited all these nonprofit organizations together. And she said to me at the very last night, we're sleeping in our respective beds, and she's like, why don't we start a nonprofit together? Because like we're here for a week or two, and patting ourselves on the backs for doing very little, but the year it's long. There's 365 days in a year. What if we're doing this from the U.S., where we have access to people and resources 365 days a year? Wouldn't that make a bigger impact if we helped raise money and awareness for some of these local organizations? And she looked me in the eye. She's like, you want to do this? I said no. I was like, that's too outlandish. That's too audacious. We can't do that. We're still in college at that point. And she kept egging me on. And a little while after that, I realized, wow, like I used to, walk her to school, literally, you know what I mean? Like I was like a school patrol with that orange belt, strapped on my shoulders, and like, help her cross the street and stuff like that. But at that moment, she was the one that was trying to lead me to do the right thing. So we said, okay, maybe we'll give that a try. And we were half joking, half serious, that we were going to start a nonprofit together. But we made one promise to each other, and we said, she said to me, Shin, you do a fundraising event at Mary Washington, just one, and I'll do one at William and Mary, no matter how big or small. Let's just start from there. And that's when we went back to the U.S.
So you went back to the U.S. and you're supposed to be doing this big fundraiser together to start an organization. You're not really sure you're starting something, but it doesn't sound like the details had really. Yeah,
we had no idea. We had no idea what we were going to do. Obviously, we didn't have a website. We didn't even have a name. We had never done anything like this. But we had a family friend who got us access to a church, Emmanuel Presbyterian Church in McLean, Virginia, and we were invited to go there and to do a small fundraising event there that winter it was around Christmas time. So we had these Christmas cards from Honduras. And when we got there, my friend Greg was like, Shin, okay, it's your time to go up and speak to the group. And I was like, I didn't know I was supposed to speak, so I didn't want to go, but he just like pushed me, and I went up to the podium and spoke to the group and told them what Cosmo and I were trying to do. And after the mass, Cosmo and I were at the back with this table selling these Christmas cards. We had no idea what we were doing. And when the first lady came up to us and asked us, hey, how much are these Christmas cards for? We looked at each other. We had completely forgotten to figure out how much we were going to sell the cards for. So Cosmo was very quick on her feet. She said, however much you'd like, man. And I think the lady ended up giving us like a $20 bill for one Christmas card. And we sold out that day. And that was when we realized maybe we're onto something. So Cosmo went to William and Mary, started to get organized. And I went back to Mary, Washington. And I went to a local dollar store and got a little transparent, clear jar for 50 cents. And I went and reserved a table at the campus center at Mary, Washington, where it's a small school with about 5,000 students. Everybody walks through that one area to get lunch. And I had a little table there. And my goal was to collect spare change from people who were walking through. My goal was to raise $100. And I spent many hours there, the whole day there, and the jar was filled. There was even a couple of dollar bills. And at that time, if someone donated a $1 bill, it was like I won the jackpot or something. It felt great, it felt great. And when I emptied the content of the jar on the table, something was wrong. I realized something was wrong. There was only $23 there. I counted multiple times. And I was like, how is it possible that I was here all day, like 10 hours, and that's all I raised? Like I could have had a minimum wage job and made more than that. So I walked back completely discouraged with my head down, complete dark. People are going to parties and stuff. And I'm just like walking back with these pennies to my dorm room. And that's when my roommate said to me, Shin, you can't do this alone, man. You gotta get a group together. You gotta get your friends. You gotta get organized. You gotta get a group together. So he encouraged me and kind of pushed me to do that, and that's what happened next.
So I'm going to have to bury the lead a little bit. A lot of people here know you did a huge walkathon, Shin. That first $23 multiplied really, really quickly, or not so quickly. It took you about 2 years, but still, can you kind of fast and tell us about the walkathon? And
right.
It was a huge, obviously you and Cosmo did great fundraising together. And can you tell us a little bit about that and the success of your big first fundraiser?
Right. Yeah. Everything at that point was trial and error. Obviously, we started to get organized and people got involved. Two members joined. We started doing bake sales. And, obviously at that point, a bake sale felt like it was a huge thing, right, compared to a penny drive. And we started knocking on doors. And I don't know, maybe there's like 20 or 30 buildings at Mary Washington, all the dorms and the academic buildings. And we ended up knocking on every single door in every single building on campus. And if someone didn't answer, we slid a flyer down the door and we said hello to every single person, every single human on campus, and told them about what we were trying to do, about SHH, what we were trying to start. We literally ran out of doors to knock on. Mm-hmm. And so
you were promoting the walkathon at this point?
We didn't even, that was like later on. We were just talking about SHH, and we started going to just random neighborhoods in Fredericksburg, knocking on doors, doing canvassing to raise money. It was a lot of work. I don't know if anyone listening has done canvassing before, but it's scary. You literally knock on someone's door and give them a little pitch and try to convince them that whatever cause you're trying to promote is worth their time. So, a lot of no's, a lot of rejections, a lot of doors being closed. But Pastor Bob, who took me to Honduras in that first trip, called me one day and said, hey, Shin, you're knocking on a lot of doors. You're getting a lot of rejection. You're getting a lot of no's. There's one door we haven't knocked on yet. There's a lady named Doris Buffett who lives not too far from your dorm room. And she has a charity. She's a philanthropist. Let's go see if maybe she can help us. And I said to him, she's a celebrity, I'm just a college kid without a degree yet. I'm broke. I live in a dorm. Like, she's not gonna wanna hear me out. And he said, what's the worst that can happen? You got 100 no's, 100 rejections. What's 101? What's the worst that can happen? And he had a very good point, right? It's just one more no. So one Friday afternoon, Bob and I went to her house and knocked on the door, and secretary answered. And we go to her house, and there's Doris there, sitting down, and she says, hey, young man, thanks for coming. Like, how can I help you? And I said to her, Doris, my name is Shin. I'm a student at Mary Washington. trying to start this organization called SHH. Would you help us? And she said, what's your goal, young man? And I said to her, Doris, my goal is to raise $100,000. That's my goal. And she said, how much have you raised so far? I was like, Doris, we've raised $23 at the penny drive. We're getting there. And she just kind of chuckled and laughed. And she looked at me. She said, okay, young man. Okay, I like the way you're thinking. You're thinking big and bold. You're in good hands, because my brother has this tiny little company called Berkshire Hathaway. My brother Warren Buffett, happens to be the richest man on planet Earth. And there I was, in Doris Buffett's house, Warren's sister, and she had this foundation. And she said to me, Shin, I could give you $100,000 right now. That's not that much for our foundation. However, I want to give you a challenge. I want to know how serious you are, how hungry you are, how much your generation is willing to work for what you're saying that you want to do. So she said to me, Shin, if you and your friends can go out there and raise $33,000 before the end of the semester, I'll give you the $66,000 you need to reach your $100,000 goal. Do you accept this challenge? I didn't even think about it for 1 second. And if I had thought about it for 1 second, I probably would have said no, because I was like shaking. And I said, yes. I don't know where that yes came from, but it came, out of my mouth. And I said, yes. I shook her hand, gave her a big hug, and bolted out the door and ran like the wind. I never sprinted so fast. I made it back to campus, and I was actually the co-captain of the club soccer team at that point. It was a bunch of us who had gotten cut and rejected by, the varsity team, and we still loved soccer, and we were scrappy. We were either too small, too slow, or not talented enough, but we loved soccer. And they were my best friends, throughout the rest of college. And I stopped practice and I said, guys, listen, this is what's going on. As soon as I told everybody about what was happening, they all emptied out their dirty soccer bags and socks, and they donated whatever change they had, and ended up raised about $100 right there in 5 minutes because of my college soccer buddies. And I still am thankful to this day. Yeah, it's not quite enough. Obviously, I was ecstatic, but, on the grand scheme of things, not even close to the goal. So we end up going on this epic fundraising campaign that semester and did one event after another. I've never been a public speaker. So this is how bad I was. In the 6th grade, our final exam was to recite in front of the whole class Robert Frost's The Road Less Taken. Everyone's read that poem before. And I was the only kid in the class that had to do it twice, because my first one was so bad. Every single person in the class, including Mrs. Ryan, the teacher, they were laughing so hard. I couldn't finish. I was trying to finish, but everyone was laughing because it was so bad. I had to do it again.
That's pretty sad.
That's how bad I was. And that was a very traumatizing experience.
Well, doing it then 1,000 times, I'm sure, right? That's what.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's amazing what repetition can do, because I did the first speech. I spoke in front of the UMW anime club, and that to me was like the most intimidating crowd, ever. It felt like it, but I did it, and I did another one, and I did another one, and eventually I think I had that semester done like 100 speeches when I look back. And we had raised a pretty decent amount of money. We had raised a little over $10,000 before the last day of school. And on the last day of school, we had actually organized an event. It was a walkathon. We had invited everybody to come and walk 5 miles and get sponsors and donate some money. No frills, right? We had literally no idea what we were doing. And on that day, we had to raise $23,000 to meet the challenge. So on that day, we wake up early. Nick, Brian Strider, Lauren, Anna Lowell, and we're getting our posters ready, and it starts to pour down rain, and all of our posters start melting away. And I'm thinking nobody's going to show up. This is ridiculous. Like, this is madness. This sucks. Yeah. And I got my head down, and Nick's trying to encourage me. I'm one of the co-founders of the team there. And we get some breakfast, and, eventually the rain starts to clear up. And when I go outside, we're trying to get our table set up. I hear a voice, and someone was calling my name, Shin, Shin, Shin. And it sounded very familiar, and I turned around, and I thought nobody was going to come. But when I turned around, I saw my mom there, who had driven all the way from Northern Virginia, a little over an hour, to be there to support the event. And she was there with my dad, my brother, And a little bit later, my sister showed up with 20, 30, 40, 50 William and Mary students.
Wow.
All the way. They drove like 3 hours, from 6 a.m. to join the event. And eventually, there were so many people there. Dr. Richard Crawley, who was the campus historian writing the 100-year history book of Mary Washington, came up to me and said, Shin, congratulations, I'm writing a book about Mary Washington. This is probably the biggest student-organized event in the 100-year history of the university. So there were thousands of people there. We thought maybe 100 people were going to show up. There were thousands. Everyone dropped off their donations and congratulated us, and we all walked 5 miles, and everybody left. And that evening, Nick and I stayed back to count the money. And we didn't have PayPal. We didn't have a website still. We didn't have, none of that. It was like back in the Stone Ages. So we had these jars of coins and dollar bills. And like the only thing we were missing were briefcases, right? And just all this cash. So it took us like 3 or 4 hours to count it all under one of the dimly lit street lamps. And around 9 or 10 p.m., I'm like, Nick, how much was the final count? And I'm just like pacing around like you, I'm always pacing. And he's like, give me a couple more seconds. I'm getting final count. And he gets a little white sheet of paper out and gets a Sharpie and writes down a number. And he said, Shin, this is what we did. This is what we did as a generation. This is it. And he turned the paper around and it said $80,000. And Nick and I, we embraced and we jumped up in the air, pumped our fists like Rocky Balboa and screamed like madmen and ran around the campus.
So you did it, and you met
the
goal.
Did it. We met the goal, and we told Doris,
right.
And she said, "I knew you could do it." I didn't think apparently she saw something in us, and so she gave us the check for $66,000. I thought she was gonna give us, a surfboard size check. Ended up being a regular size check. I was kind of disappointed, like I say, but it was still the same amount of money, and more and more money kept pouring in. So at the end, with Doris's help, we ended up raising $148,000 in a matter of a couple of months. A very small group of very dedicated students, 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, with no experience, with no money, had basically shattered that challenge that she had given us.
Right. And then it wasn't a fluke. I mean, you talk about trying to replicate it and do it again, and you did it again the second year, your final senior year of college. And I'm going to just spoil it, but it was about $280,000 that you had raised the second year to do it, and replicated the walkathon and really blew it out of the water. And that's,
yeah. We thought maybe the first time was a fluke. Maybe it was beginner's luck, but the blueprint was replicable indeed, and,
right.
and repeatable.
Right.
That's what we found out.
Right. So now that, you're out of college, you've raised all of this money, you have the backing and the support of, your teammate and your sister that you've started this thing. You have, Doris Buffett and your entire university community. This is thousands of people that are backing you now. And to do this and to finally settle that you're not going to go to med school. You're going to go to Honduras and make this, your life's work at this point. Can you tell us about, once you get there, that doesn't mean that you're going to have a successful development program. And actually all of these, you have the drive, you have the inspiration. How did that actually form and turn into Via Soleada?
Yeah. So, like you said, I had to make that decision. I was set to go to med school, but I ended up deciding not to. And I told my parents about it, and they were very supportive, to my surprise. And all they wanted to know was when they could come see us in Honduras. So that was really, not only did my parents find me tutors when I needed it, or have a library downstairs for us to read books all day. They were always supportive of our crazy ideas. And my sister, who, growing up, we were like Lisa, the Japanese Lisa and Bart Simpsons. We kind of didn't get along, but at that time, her and I were real tight. We were inseparable, and we decided to do it together. And we moved to Honduras, rented a small, tiny concrete house to make sure, we weren't going to let this thing die out. We knew we were onto something big. So we moved down there. And I remember going to the shanty slum to tell people about the good news. We planned on using that money we raised that second year to help build homes for the people who lived in the shanty slum. That was what they said they needed most. However, when we were driving there, the taxi driver that took us there told us, "Wow, you guys are trying to do a housing project, but did you know that like right near the shanty slum, there's a housing project, a massive one that people spent millions of dollars on that completely failed, that something went wrong. They couldn't figure out the legal paperwork for the land titles and stuff. And the houses that the organization built are completely empty and no one is allowed to inhabit them." So he was like, yeah, things like that happen. There's another housing complex, a housing project that completely failed, and the place got taken over, overrun by MS-13, and it actually turned out this charitable project had turned out to become the most dangerous slum in El Progreso, the slum of San Jorge, which is completely overrun by gangs right now. So he was telling us that's good luck, that's kind of what tends to happen here. So
Right.
Cosmo and I, yeah.
What was the difference? How did you gain the credibility, the trust? Who were the individuals that actually made sure that didn't happen in this case?
We could have been another failed project, but Cosmo and I, we followed a lot of organizations and tried to learn from their mistakes. We have been, and at the time we were huge fans of Room to Read, started by John Wood. He's got a fantastic book out. We both devoured Leaving Microsoft to Change the World. And we read a lot of books about community organizing and how to involve communities in what we call participatory development, having the people that you're working with involved in the decision making from beginning to end. So, on paper, when you read those things, they sound really cool and you try to do it, but in practice, they don't really tell you how to do it step by step, right? The little details. So that kind of stuff, we had to, figure it all out on the fly. Yeah, because like I still remember the first meeting we had with the community there. We were like, hey, we know we talked about this idea of building this housing project together. We raised the money, so let's get organized. That meeting was a complete disaster, the first meeting, and we all met and people were arguing. They couldn't agree on what the project was going to look like. There were different factions, different families didn't go along with other people. Some people trusted us, other people and justifiably didn't trust us, right? Two college students that we both looked like we were like 14 years old. And they're like, you're saying you raised all this money to build houses for the entire community? Like that doesn't sound, like it's plausible. So,
and you have told me before that you just, even after, you started the project, you'd even bought the land, that you still weren't sure if that it was going to happen, if the families were going to move in, if all of this was just if any of it was real. What was the moment for you that you think it became real, where you realized these 44 families were serious about doing it and were in this with you and leading the project?
Yeah. So, we started the project and we had asked, we ended up deciding to build the project elsewhere because the families voted and they said, we don't want to build the houses here, even though that was the original plan, because they were scared because they didn't have land titles, that the actual owner of the land, we never found out who that was, but they were scared that the owner was going to come and bulldoze the houses down and take the place over. So the families voted and said, let's buy a different plot of land and start this building project elsewhere. So we ended up buying a plot of land and started building. And the one thing that we asked the community members was, in exchange for all the construction supplies and the purchase of the land, we're going to provide all that. We're asking everyone to chip in what we call sweat equity, their hours of labor, for them to, so it's never a handout in a way. And so, people agreed to put in hours of work. And we started with 72 families, but every week less people started showing up. And I started wondering, oh, wow, was this whole project a mistake? Do people actually not want this? What's going to happen? Eventually we're going to finish this and no one's going to actually end up, being in the project. I was filled with doubt. But at one point, we had a really long day at work. It's, obviously very hot here and we're working under the sun all day. And we're driving out of the community on the dirt road that we built with our bare hands, literally filling the swamp with stones, one stone at a time. And we're driving out on the bus and a woman stops the bus and says, don't go. There's a large group of armed men with machine guns waiting to ambush you all. Like, don't go. And this was around the time where there was a lot of civil unrest in Honduras. There was a coup. There was an earthquake, which destroyed a lot of infrastructure. And there was a lot of lawlessness here. This was around the time when Honduras was descending into kind of their dark period of the crime epidemic that they saw in the last decade. And
2007.
It was around then, yeah.
2007.
Yeah. So it was around a little bit before that, and so we got on the bus and we're like, oh my gosh, like these guys, these bandits, they had been pillaging all the local communities, and we were the next victims. And people just started to pray out loud and screaming, crying, and it was really, I didn't know what to do. And the men get out, and one of my close friends that helped manage the construction, Wilson, who was one of the community leaders, called me over and he said, Shin, we have an idea. We all have shovels and pickaxes and machetes from the work site. We're going to surround the bus, all the men, and you are going to go inside the bus with all the children and women, and the bus is going to follow us, and we are going to confront these bandits out there and fight them. And I was like, Wilson, that is madness. Are you kidding me? These guys have guns, or you guys have shovels. And he said, well, you call the cops. They said they might not come. They didn't even have gasoline to get their vehicle to our community. So the hour was getting darker by the minute. And obviously he said, we're going to be like sitting ducks if we just let nightfall happen. We have to go while there's still sunlight, so we have a chance of fighting back. And he said to me, Shin, we are doing this because all of us here have literally been homeless, going from one place to another, getting evicted, staying in the shanty slum in fear of being kicked out at any moment. And he said to me, Shin, my family has never had a home until now. Until now, we have a shot for my family to have a place to call home. And that is something that nobody is going to take away. So he grabbed the pickaxe, literally threw me onto the bus, and he said, go. And all the men just like ran out with the bus following them. And I closed my eyes, but when I opened it, a couple of cop cars were coming in, and the cops came out, and they ran out with all the men in our community in Wilson to go meet the bad guys, the bandits. And they weren't there. They ran away. And as we drove home that night, people were kind of talking about it. They were like, wow, they ran away. Or was it actually that they were never there? Was it just collective paranoia? No one really found out. So the one thing that I found out was, wow, the families who are left, who are here working day and night to make this project happen, they are literally willing to face bandits with assault weapons to make sure that their families have homes. That was really, I tell you, I mean, and we kept at it, and those families are now the ones that live here.
That's really powerful realization, and really scary that had to be the way that you.
And that was one out of like so many situations like that. So many.
Wow. And that was even before you're talking, that's before SHH has built even one school. This is just the very first project. And I know that so many lessons have been learned in the decade plus since that time, and just doing development the right way of just realizing that you're not in control of it. You could have all of the money, all of the backing, all of the drive behind you, but in these situations, it does take a community, it takes complete trust, and it takes everybody in it together in the long run. And I think that SHH has certainly stood the test of time and has only been able to be possible because of that tenacity of the people that live in Villa Soleada, the community members that are reach out to us to have schools built in their really rural communities where those acts of violence and that threat is always present. So I think that is just a huge testament to what I see every time I get to to be around the staff that's there and continues through COVID. I mean, you take
Right.
that story and then today to something that is not only threatening to everybody and is affecting Honduras. It just is going to affect and it will affect into the future. Affect the economy, affect the health of people, and affect, of course, education. And that's kind of where we're at today, and responding to this sort of threat. And there still is the tenacity and the passion of not only our organization, but everybody that's there on the ground. And can you tell us a little bit about where you're at now? I know, let's fast forward of 13 or 14 years from that.
Right.
And talk about like today, this trauma, this kind of collective trauma again in the community.
Yeah. So we've gone through a lot of traumatic situations. Obviously, this can be a very unpredictable and dangerous setting here sometimes. But each time we've relied on the people of Honduras to show us the way. Growing up, I don't think anyone would have called me a brave kid or anything like that. I remember just letting a lot of my friends down when I should have stepped up to do something if they were getting beaten up or something, and I never did. And to stand alongside and observe and watch the Hondurans step up to face these life or death situations to protect the community and to protect their families and to protect us. I always hope that their courage kind of leaches into me, a little bit at least. And that situation is no different this time too. With COVID-19, our Honduran employees continue to fight to keep the organization afloat. And right now, we only have, I believe, on any given day, 4 to 5 of us working here at the children's home. Everything else is suspended right now.
Well, suspended.
Everything stopped.
Right?
Everything is stopped. I know we were going to break ground on school number 59 this month, but that had to be postponed. But we are here at the children's home right now in Villa Soleada. The whole country is on lockdown. Honduras has chosen to take very strict measures. So most roads are completely shut down. You can't go from one city to another. You can only leave the house once every 10 days. So it's a very, very interesting situation. We have stayed at the Villa Soleada Children's Home for, I think, almost 6 or 7, or I can't remember, 8 weeks maybe. Right. We haven't left here. Yeah, everything. I can't even tell what day of the week it is sometimes. Right. But we've stayed here with the 24 kids and the 4 staff members to take care of the children, to keep them fed and protected and safe, and somehow still learning, right? So, they're still getting schoolwork. We usually have 10 staff members, and now we're down to 4. So it's quite the challenge, but one of the house mothers who lives with the kids, Yolanda, she is one of the founding members of Villa Soleada. She's been with us at this community since day one, over a decade. I've known her for over a decade, and she works for us. And that's what it is. The people here at Villa Soleada, they once the infrastructure projects were finished, they said to me, Shin, we've gotten so much here. How can we give back? How can we pay it forward? And it was around then that we started to build schools together, all the fathers in the community in SHH, and with other parents in the community, to run the children's home here, to do all these different projects. So they're really running the children's home, so that because they're stepping up, and because the teenagers even in the children's home, that people who know some of them would be completely surprised. These kids can be big goofballs sometimes. We all know, I'm not going to say names, but yeah, they can be out of control. But right now, it's those kids who are stepping up to act as assistant caretakers, helping cook the meals, running soccer practice, doing all those things, unleashing their truest potential, so that I can focus on making phone calls to keep the organization afloat financially. So they're the ones really keeping everything going. It's amazing to watch.
Yeah, that's amazing. And the resilience of those kids is always it's mind-blowing. So I'm not surprised at all to hear how they are stepping up and taking these leadership roles. I'm really not surprised.
And I got to say, and I knew some people said to me, Shin, I don't know if this is a good idea to have these kids help that much. Can they handle that much responsibility? I knew they could, because maybe it's been 3 years, we had received an extortion threat, and we had to evacuate our personnel out, and we had to suspend everything. When the kids at the children's home saw the entire community rally to protect the organization, the community had created this patrol committee to make sure if any, gang members came in to do something to us, that they were going to fight back. When our kids saw it at the children's home, they were really inspired. So they collected sticks and stones and their little mini flashlights and started patrolling the children's home to make sure that no one was gonna harm us. So they're always ready to step up. You know what I mean? They're always ready. They're just waiting for that opportunity to get some responsibility, right? That's how they grow, I think. It's really amazing to watch.
Well, it's nice they are able now to spend more time with them. I know you're always trying to spend more time at the children's home and really get that valuable time with them, right? That
finally.
So that's been really great. And this is all not to mention that during this COVID time, our entire community has stepped up, and while you're making those phone calls, and has raised now over $150,000 in just the last, like you said, 8 weeks now, in order to respond to this and to also be looking out for those same 44 families in Villa Soleada. We've used money from the emergency fund in order to bring rice and beans and pay for electricity, water bills, utilities, and pay our staff as much as we can for the month of April, and doing what we can to support our community. Can you talk a little bit about that and our response?
Yeah. So when it all hit us, when it hit the world, what was happening, we had a group of donors from Sacramento visiting us to inaugurate the completion of the high school building here. And because it hit us so suddenly, right after we inaugurated the building, we had to evacuate everybody out. And that's when it hit me that, wow, we're in a really bad situation right now. And we had every campus chapter got shut down. Every fundraising event got canceled, like you said. 2 galas that we had been planning all year for were canceled. And like you said, all of our volunteer trips were canceled indefinitely. And this is kind of our busiest season where we make most of our revenue for the year to operate. And because everything got shut down, we literally went down close to zero. So I remember going to bed and having nightmares of just us going under financially, not being able to keep things going, to keep the lights on. Right. So yeah, we launched the campaigns, and
the campaigns, we were going to launch Tigers Club anyway. Right?
Yeah,
so
yeah,
we've been planning to do, and we were, we've been always transition and do these.
Yeah,
right, try to have
the crazy thing is the Tigers Club, which is what I think is going to. Which is the game changer. It's a monthly giving campaign where people are donating $1 a day or $30 a month. Because we do not know how long this crisis is going to last, getting a consistent amount of money for however many months is our only shot at surviving this. Because what are we going to, once we run out of the emergency fund, are we going to do another emergency campaign every 3 months? That just wouldn't work. It wouldn't be sustainable. So I did the math, and I realized, at first, I thought we needed 390 people to give $1 a day. Right now, it's looking like we might need 500 people to give $1 a day for us to survive this thing. If we could get there, we could make it out on the other side without having to throw the towel into the ring. It seemed like a crazy idea, and I was so scared to launch the project. We actually started talking about this over 2 years ago, and we were working on the website, kind of the wording, everything, and I think everything was pretty ready. But I kept delaying it. I kept postponing it. I didn't want to make that first phone call. I was so scared of getting rejected and people thinking this was a crazy idea. What do you mean we're going to get 500 people to give $1 a day? That's, I thought people were going to just not believe in it. Well, we have, 370 some people who have joined.
We're only a couple dozen people away
from reaching the first tier goal. And so when we launched it, we weren't ready. The website wasn't fully finished, but we launched it anyways. And we were thrust into a position to make the first phone call. And, you know, we're going to show a video in a little bit of me nervously making my very first phone calls for Tigers Club, which should have happened months ago. But I was so scared. I didn't do it. But each time when I'm thrust into a situation where I have to do these things that I'm afraid of doing, things seem to happen. So obviously it's a huge team effort, Amanda. We have people making phone calls from multiple cities throughout the world. Our phone-a-thon team. We have the virtual team like you and Cassidy and Jessa and everybody else. Jesse, who's keeping our school running remotely and virtually. And we got a huge team of supporters, staff, and volunteers, and our local Honduran nationals who are here working day to day to keep the programs going. It's a whole team effort. And, you know, it's very inspiring to be a witness to all this.
Exactly. And Tigers Club, I mean, like we said before, it is for the future. It's not just to get us through COVID, and now it's sadly turned into those emergency needs for us. But if we can do this now, this is going to sustain us to be able to make all of the dreams for the bilingual school come true, to launch our final Cradle to Career program into Villa Soleada, and to finally actually those 1,000 schools is in our future. So without, I guess, further ado, we're going to show you, we can talk about it, but we're going to show you a little bit more about Tigers Club, show Shin making some of those phone calls. Allegra Stiles is our incredible videographer. You've hopefully seen some of the wonderful videos that she's put out this year. Please go to our Facebook, Instagram, all socials to see and learn about all the great communities. But we're going to cue it up right now to give you guys a little sneak peek about what Shin has been up to and tell you a little bit more about Tigers Club. So.
Hey, Sina. Hey, Brian. It's Shin. It's me, Shin. Hello, Alisa. It's me, Shin. Hey, how are ya? We just launched Tigers Club. Tigers Club. Tigers Club. Amy, can we count you in? I just wanted to call to say thank you. So if you know anyone that wants to help, that's the best way. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Colette. Okay. Thank you so much. All right. Bye, Brian. All right, Bob. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Oh, yay! I'm pumped up. I'm pumped up again. Yeah, cool. So there you have it. I mean, man, I love it. She did a great job. She did great. It's amazing just every time to see the actual faces of the students and get a little bit of scope, those aerial shots. So cool. Drone shots are just, it's so awesome. So thank you for everyone has held on this whole time. I know we've gone a little bit over time, but this was fabulous. Thank you so much. I hope this was enjoyable for everyone that's been watching. I had a lot of fun, Shin, just chatting with you. I know it's a little bit different, and we could be talking forever. There's so many stories that you have to tell, and I know that they will all be in your book. But I like, hearing them from the source. It's been a lot of fun. So please, everybody, Cassie, I think you're gonna put up that slide. There's a few other ways to help. So in addition to Tigers Club, if you're able to donate, obviously Tigers Club is the best way, but there are many things that you can do to help us right now. If you'd like to just give a one-time donation to the emergency fund, that way we can keep supporting the families in VIA and the organization through this time. But if you have time to give, we are a volunteering organization. So virtual volunteers, we need them in every capacity of the organization. If you are any kind of professional, or if you have no skills, we can use you for our weekly Tuesday calls. Come and hear what we're about. If you're at a university, hear about joining a chapter, starting a chapter at your school, but the weekly Tuesday calls is where you're going to hear the meat of it. If you would like to join our first annual virtual leadership week. Leadership week is normally in Honduras, and it is the best. It's the best week ever. It's my favorite week of the year. And this year it's going to be all virtual, and we're going to have just as much fun, and see you all again in Honduras super soon. We can use people to plan virtual fundraisers, recruit new Tigers Club donors, and just help us spread awareness about the importance of global education right now, especially after COVID. Time is over one day. It's going to be the kids that are going to need our help more than ever. So please, 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 on this Giving Tuesday, we hope that you choose Students Helping Honduras to make a donation to, or sign up for Tigers Club, or even just ask a friend or a family member to do that as well. This has been recorded, so share this with a friend if you think they'd be interested in Students Helping Honduras or to hear Shin's story. Shin, I'd like to take this time to just thank you for taking time out of your already busy day to chat with me. This was awesome.
Yeah, this was fun. Let's do it again.
All right, sounds good. I'll see you next Tuesday, 6 p.m. Zoom, so you can find those links and all that information again on our Facebook page. You follow us on Instagram. I don't think we're really tweeting. Facebook is the place to really find us, but especially at shhkids.org/Tigers Club is where you can find us and more information. So thank you all for being here, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.